Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon for our 50th Anniversary Ambassador Panel. You are in for a great treat because we have brought back 50 years of true history and, stories from Disneyland. So without further ado, I would like to welcome 50 years of former ambassadors. Welcome, everybody. So I should mention that my name is Allie, and I'm a 2015 Disney Ambassador, and my partner is Jessica Bernard, and I would just love to introduce everybody here. We have Quinn Shurian, the Ambassador from 2009-2010. Matt Ebling, the Ambassador from 2002. Eddie Garcia from 2000-2001. Bonnie Delhoy Utley from 1994. Melissa Tyler Wakerman from 1985. Emily Zinser Benedict from 1972. And our second ambassador from 1966, Connie Swanson Lane. So as you all know, here at the Disneyland Resort, all of our stories start with a once upon a time beginning. So I thought it'd be nice to go down the line and hear your Disney stories.
Good afternoon, everyone. I started here at the Disneyland Resort in 1994, working in Fantasyland attractions. I really wanted to be a tour guide, so that was my goal, and Freddie Salazar, who hired me, said, I want you to get some spiel experience. So we waited a little while, and I was able to get trained on Storybook Land canal boats, where I was able to get a spiel under my belt and really have that confidence level. 2 years later, I was able to transfer into guest relations. I did that for several years as a lost and found cast member and guided tours. I had an unfortunate incident breaking my elbow, which was kind of a double-edged sword, because then I was able to move into a backstage support role where I got to enjoy much more regular hours. I did that for about 7 years and moved into our cast communications business, where after that I worked on the Dream Squad during the Year of a Million Dreams. I worked for Adventures by Disney as a tour guide, and then I was selected to be the ambassador for 2009-2010. And today I work in corporate citizenship, where we help with all of the charitable outreach and making magic in the community. And I love it.
Well, I loved my Disney career and enjoyed a lot of different roles before and after my ambassador term. But the whole thing started with basically a friend tricking me into joining the Disney family. And so basically how this went down is, here I was, excruciatingly shy 17-year-old high school baseball player, would kind of have a mild panic attack if even 2 or more people would try to speak to me at one time. And this friend of mine, he knew this, and he knew that I probably needed a good kick in the pants toward social confidence, and he was going to submit an application to work at Disneyland, and invited me to come along, saying, I'm filling out an application for the attractions division, and don't worry, I know you're a shy guy, and this is just about mechanics and machinery and pushing buttons are going to be behind the scenes. You're not even going to have to worry about people at all. Don't you worry a bit. And so I followed along and said, sounds great. Long story short, he took me backstage. I was immediately thrust into a huge room, almost all mirrors. A lot of people strangely warming up, stretching, wearing strange clothing I wasn't familiar with. He had tricked me into going to an entertainment division dance audition. You can imagine how much dancing a shy baseball player had done up to that point. So basically, the magic of Disney being what it was, I discovered some talents I didn't know were there, maybe never would have discovered, thanks to this good friend. And overnight, said a swift goodbye to the shy kid in me and started a wonderful journey with Disney that has not ended, and I hope it never does.
No, very similar to Matt. I don't know if mine was a trick, but I'll tell you, all great stories start about a girl, and that's how mine started. The girl who dumped me made me really sad and mopey, and my sister who worked here, her name was Lizette, she worked at the park and was tired of seeing me moping around and being all sad. So one day, I remember I was on the couch at home and she hands me the phone, "It's for you." And I pick up and go, "Hello?" They say, "Hi, this is Disneyland Casting. What time do you want your interview?" What do you mean? What time do I want my interview? And they said, "What time do you want?" They said, "Is 8 o'clock okay?" "Yeah, 8 o'clock's fine." And I hung up and I'm like, "What'd you do?" She's like, "I'm tired of watching you mope around. You need to go work at the happiest place on earth like me." Okay, so I went to the interview. This was when the casting center was off of Catella at the time. And I remember I went in and interviewed at 8 o'clock. Then they said, "Hey, can you stick around? We want to interview again." Sure. Then 2 hours later, they said, "Hey, can you interview again?" Sure. And many hours later, then again, they brought me in and they finally offered me a job in costuming. And I told them, "Oh, you know what? I really prefer to drive the Jungle Cruise if I want to work at Disneyland. So I love the Jungle Cruise." And they said, "Oh, let's see what we got." They came back and they're like, "Well, normally we have a part-time position costuming. If you want to work in Jungle Cruise, you have to go into Attractions West. And we have what's called the casual temporary position, which is not full-time, not part-time, not part-time, part-time, but part-time, 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 seasonal." So they said, "You might not get hours." I said, "Good enough, I'll do that." So for my very first job, my very first night, I remember I was guarding strollers in front of Pirates of the Caribbean in that yellow and Charlie Brown looking outfit. My little flash. It was amazing. I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. And I begged and pleaded to learn Jungle Cruise, and 3 months later I did, and that's where I started.
So I was the little girl that didn't know what she wanted to be when she grew up. And it wasn't because I didn't have any interests or I was lazy or boring, but it's because I had too many interests and I had a really hard time choosing a path that I wanted to follow because I was afraid if I picked this thing, then I'd have to give up 28 other things that I love to do. So thank goodness my path led me to Disney through a friend that was working. It was when I was in high school, and I had a friend working at Sunkist at the time in the park at Adventureland, and they needed some help with the summer season that was coming up. So I went to apply so that I could work with my friend. But I had also grown up in Anaheim and right down the street from Disneyland, so I was a big fan. So shortly after I hired in with Sunkist, Disney announced that they were no longer having lessees in the parks. So we were all going to be jobless within a few months. And we were given the option to apply if we wanted to stay, working in the park, but we'd have to apply to become Disney cast members. So I decided to do that, and I actually was intending to go the route that Matt surprisingly got dropped into. I was applying to work in entertainment, and the rehearsal schedules weren't going to work with my college schedule. So fortunately, I ended up in Fantasyland Attractions as my first job. I was a storybook girl riding through the Whales map. And I did that for a few years. I was also a trainer and I was a university leader where we taught the orientation classes for all of the new cast members. And that was the experience where I really got just such a wealth of knowledge about the history of Disney and all of Walt's traditions. And I really just started to gain a huge appreciation for the Disney brand. So shortly after that, I applied for the ambassador role, and I was very fortunate to get that because on a completely different scale, that really opened my eyes to all that the company does. And I just feel so blessed that I ended up there because it was a great fit for a girl who didn't know what she wanted to be, because Disney does everything, is what I discovered my ambassador year. And so I was able to continue with Disney. After being ambassador, I worked in community relations and public affairs. I was a speechwriter for our executive team for a while. I actually took a little break. I went to work in nonprofit for a few years, came back to Disney, as almost everybody does who leaves, and stayed another several years, and I actually just left about a year ago to start my own business. But I love coming back for things like this because once you're a cast member, always a cast member, and always part of the Disney family. So it's fun to see all of you here today too.
I am also a native of the Orange County area, so I grew up coming here for birthdays, and I decided at the end of high school to try auditioning for a parade. And I was very fortunate to get a part where I got to fill in for whoever was sick that day. So if you guys remember in Fantasy on Parade, the old card drill team, there were lots of cards. So I've been told I'm a card sometimes, and a lot of times I was a card on that parade. Anyway, that was a fun experience, and that led into a part-time, also seasonal position with the characters and all of the different atmosphere groups here at Disneyland. So I got to like go sprinkle around some magic throughout the parks, and also, well, at the time it was just the one park, so it's so neat now we have more. And then I continued doing that till I became the ambassador for our 30th anniversary, and I've also had a career where I've been able to come and work for Disney in different capacities, both as an entertainment producer, in the marketing special events area, opened California Adventure, and worked on that huge team that did that, so I had a fabulous time working here at Disney for years.
Not unlike my brother over there, Matt, when I was young, I was also painfully shy. And that connected us, I think, on a certain level. And one day, I just said to myself, nobody knows I'm shy. And it was a moment in time I made a decision not to be shy anymore. And as a result, I decided I think I want to work at Disneyland. And so I talked to a friend who was a ride operator, and I applied to be a ride operator. And they put me in the tour guide department because I had just returned from Mexico City studying and living for a year, and they said, we need a language. And they hired me as a tour guide, which I enjoyed. And then within that year, I was called by my supervisor, Cicely Rigdon, who you'll hear her name again today. And I was asked to report to what was the facade of the Haunted Mansion. Nothing had been finalized there for the ride. It was always a big mystery, as you probably recall. And so I sat in one of the carts that was there, and they had the casting director from the studios there, and he was interviewing for the role of a tour guide to accompany Kurt Russell and the Osmond brothers on a tour of Disneyland. They were doing a Wonderful World of Color Haunted Mansion special. That was back in 1970. And so that was an incredible opportunity, which led to the next opportunity. I got another call from one of the directors of operations who interviewed me to go to Florida for this big secret announcement. It happened to be Walt Disney World. And so they sent a team of about 8 girls, all taken from the park. They drilled us up at the studios about what was going to happen. They gave us all the secret terms that they were referring to this land when they bought it, so that no one knew what was happening. And they were going to have the big press announcement during a weekend period, and we were going to be the guides. And one of the things that was exciting is they had a big topo of the map of what the design was going to be. And there were press and there were guards, armed guards around it, because it was in a tent and people were trying to get under the tent and get a peek and get that first picture. And so we had the opportunity and the honor of taking dignitaries and press through this marshland where there was nothing. And again, it's 43,000 acres, if you can imagine, nothingness, with a couple of balloons saying this is where Sleeping Beauty's castle is going to be, this is where the Contemporary is going to be, this is where the Polynesian Hotel. And it was the most awesome experience. And so then I decided I wanted to be the ambassador. So after meeting somebody who was an ambassador, and I asked her what she did, I said, that's what I'm going to do. So after 3 tries, the first didn't work, the second didn't work, but the third did, because I told them I wouldn't stop until they hired me. And they did. And so one of my first experiences was to go to Walt Disney World now and to see it completed and already opened. And I'll never forget, as I drove into the area of Orlando, and I looked off in the distance, there was the real castle shining through, and it was nighttime and it was all lighted, and it was a truly emotional experience. From seeing that as a balloon, and it seemed like just a year or two before, now there it was, open, and there was the Sleeping Beauty's castle. So that was the great beginning to my career as Disneyland ambassador.
Once upon a time, there was a Anaheim girl who loved to surf. And she managed to squeak out of high school a little early occasionally and take her board down to the waves. One day, after wiping out a number of times, one of my friends said, "Dude, you know they're hiring at Disneyland." And I said, "Cool, I could do that. I could work a little, go to school, finish high school, and I could still have time to surf." So I went home, made up my mind I was going to apply and change clothes, of course, and dressed up, and bought a ticket to Disneyland. Main gate admission was $2.50 or something of that type. And I waited in Town Square for Donald Novus, who was then the head of guest relations. And Donald Novus was the original Irish tenor in the Golden Horseshoe Revue with Fulton Burley and Betty Taylor. So I knew what he looked like. He was not an unknown person. He came out of City Hall and I hit him like a tornado. "Mr. Novus, Mr. Novus, I'm so excited. I want to be a tour guide." And he goes, "Whoa, whoa, whoa." First of all, you have to know at Disneyland, everyone is on a first name basis. I'm Don. So I started again. Don. I really want to be a tour guide. And he goes, "What do you want me to do?" I said, "I want you to give me an application so that I can apply to be a tour guide, and then hopefully you'll hire me." And he said, "Well, we don't do things that way." And I said, "Oh, please, because I know they'll put me on Storybook Land. If I go through the casting center, sorry."
Ain't nothing wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that, except my heart was in guest relations. That's where I was hoping for. So he got me an application. He had me fill it out then and there because I wasn't leaving until I had. And then he goes, "You're not old enough." And I said, "Well, I know, but I thought you could keep it on file, and I'll call you on my birthday." How naive is that? But my birthday came and I called him, and I started work that Christmas, December in guest relations, and got to walk as a star bearer in front of the candlelight procession way back when. Awesome. It was an awesome time.
These great stories. I'm just like sitting here listening to everybody. I've been a cast member for 8 years. I had a unique way of hiring in. I was not a cast member when I won a contest of the Year of a Million Dreams as a dream job contestant. I got to perform in High School Musical Pep Rally and Disney California Adventure, and I'm not a dancer, so that was a lot of fun. Interesting, but fun. From that experience, I realized it is so much fun to be on this side. I was an annual pass holder before, but to be making the magic for the guests that are in the park, I was completely sold, and I applied the following week. I made it into the Disney College program, and I worked with a team called Disney Desk, which is an off-site Good Neighbor Hotel Disney concierge. I also transferred to guest services at our resort hotels, spent some time with the Dream Squad as well, and my last role was as the guest service manager with the Main Street Food and Beverage team there. So when I look back on my 8 years, I know that definitely these experiences from the past 2 days of hearing your stories are ones that I will always remember, and meeting each of you through this experience. So I was just curious if you would like to share about some of the people that you've met through your ambassador time that have had an influence on you.
I'll go. I think for me, going into the role, you don't really know what to expect other than what you see happen before you. And I remember very clearly reading in our employee newsletters about their experience, the ambassadors' experiences, training and cross-training with their fellow cast members. And that was something that I was really looking forward to, because I thought, what a great time to go into the costuming building and I can play dress up, and I can say, I want to learn the Haunted Mansion today, or I want to learn how to scoop ice cream today. And that really was one of the highlights of my time as ambassador, was standing alongside the cast members that I was representing, understanding what they did and how they made the magic for all of you every day. Because I've been in an office for several years, and it's so easy to forget that we work at Disneyland when we're sitting in the big yellow building off of the 5 freeway. And that was something that was very important to me, and I loved doing it, to the point where if they needed me at 3 in the morning to help plant flowers, I was going to be there at 3 in the morning to help plant flowers, because I wanted to know what it was about, and I loved every minute of it. And it's the pictures that I have that I'm not allowed to post on Facebook. Really, I mean, it really was just such a wonderful experience to what I call play dress up, and I would do it again today if my boss would let me.
And I definitely want to echo Quinn's sentiments about the joy of just connecting with cast members, and that extends to the guests as well. I think the best part about being a cast member in any role is that we have the opportunities to exchange stories. Storytelling is just such a centerpiece of the Disney legacy, no matter who you are. And so I really enjoyed that. And then history is also important. I loved it when we had these humbling moments as ambassadors to be in the presence of and have quiet conversation one-on-one with some of the people that helped start the Disney dream. And you know, the list is long for all of us of people like that we got to sit down with. And for me, a couple of people in particular that it meant a lot to me was sitting down with Roy Disney on several occasions between events, and kind of grilling him about his story, his experience, but also just talking about trivial fun things. And he was a big movie fan, and we used to talk about Song of the South and his distaste that we couldn't have Song of the South in every home anymore, you know. And you know, he used to get real fired up about certain things. And then I also love to talk to Art Linkletter, and many of you know of Art and his longtime friendship with Walt Disney. And you know, he hosted the opening day broadcast of Disneyland along with Ronnie Reagan and Bob Cummings, and Art was phenomenal because his energy was unbridled. I mean, this man never stopped. And you know, my last conversation with him, he was about 93, and he was having a grumpy day because his wife had just taken his snow skis away from him. He said he couldn't snow ski downhill anymore at 93, and he was really grumpy about it and didn't agree with that decision. And, but he also was an inspiring man who said, you know, my best energy comes from the stories of other people, and I just feed off of people's stories, and I just loved that. And so, anyway, great experience, and we're so lucky and humbled to have those.
You know, as an ambassador, you're an emissary of goodwill, and it means a lot. And there's one moment in my experience as ambassador that it really hit home. And it was a little girl I met named Maria. Let me tell you about Maria. One of the things that most of us were fortunate enough to do was take Mickey and Minnie to Chalk Hospital and go visit all the kids there. And this was a normal visit, something we do all the time, and I was visiting. And this particular day, they asked us if we could go to the NICU, the neonatal unit, and that was very rare. I was like, oh yeah, we'd love to go. Went up there, and the second we walked in, this woman comes running up to me, crying, and gives me the biggest hug in the world. And I'm like, okay, what's going on? And she speaks Spanish. And she tells me, I am so glad you're here. You have no idea how happy I am to see you. My daughter was just born 3 days ago. Her name is Maria. She's premature. And from the moment I was pregnant, I wanted her to take a picture with Mickey Mouse at the Disneyland. I don't know if I'm going to get that chance. I said, why? And she said, she was born with a hole in her heart, and they're doing open heart surgery tomorrow. And now you're here. Can you take a picture with her? And I was like, of course we can. And we take pictures, and Mom's there, Mickey's there, Minnie's there, I'm there. And at that moment, it hit me that no matter what happened in our lives, you know, yeah, I'm a Disneyland ambassador, yeah, I work for Disney, my gas bill is due tomorrow, who cares? There was this 3-day-old little girl named Maria that was gonna have open heart surgery, didn't know if I was gonna make it or not. After, you know, we took all the pictures, we took a lot of pictures. And I remember I told Mickey and Minnie, I was like, hey, I got something in my eye, can we take a break? And we went in the back and just, you know, took a little break. I don't know what happened to Maria. I'm hoping she's a 14-year-old girl right now with the coolest picture of Mickey Mouse and a somewhat handsome guy. But I think about her a lot because when things start getting crazy in my life, I always think back to how simple it is. It could be worse. I could be Maria, that I don't know if she's gonna have a future. My problem right now, okay, my phone's not working. That's easily fixed. So let's talk about influence. That was one of my biggest things as ambassador.
Thanks, Eddie.
No problem.
Next. Not sure how we follow that. Well, kind of on a similar humanity note, I will follow with, a popular question you get as a former ambassador is, everybody wants to know what famous people you met, what Disney legends did you meet, and it's because of the persona factor, the popularity factor, I think, in most cases. And I really, looking back on my ambassador year, I think it was a real study in like social studies. I mean, you learn so many life lessons going through experiences like that. And in meeting so many wonderful people, I realized very quickly, not all of them, but most of the famous people are not on those pedestals because they put themselves there. They're there because we put them there. And when you really get to know them, you realize they're just people. Like all of us, we're all human beings, and we all love to connect on that human level. And so those were my favorite people to meet because they were so inspiring. And people that live in that world crave that human connection, and they just want to be normal, and they just want to live the life, that we're all living. So one of those that stands out in my mind is Tony Baxter. He had that effect on me. We were doing a press event together, and we had a couple hours of downtime one afternoon, and he's Tony Baxter. He knows everyone. He can go anywhere, and he can do anything. And he chose to spend his 2 hours by inviting me to go on a walk through the park with him. And I was awestruck, and it was such an enjoyable experience listening to story after story from Tony and hearing all of the behind the scenes and where this is now, but it was intended to go there, and there's a hole in that tree should be grown in more because that hole shouldn't be there, and his attention to detail. And as awestruck as I was, this was just quality time for him to get to be Tony. A huge fan of Disney, and to get to share stories with someone that was really interested in listening to them. And at the end of our time together, this is where the human factor really came into play for me. Before we parted, Tony looked me in the eye and he said, I have a really important message that I want you to take back to all of your cast members that you know. And that is that, we, the Imagineers, he said, I consider us the bakers of the cookies, but you, the cast members that interact with the guests every day, you get to deliver the cookies to the guests. And that is such an important role that all of you play, and so much more important than anything that we do. This is Tony speaking. And he just really wanted to instill that in me, and I very happily took that message back to all of the cast members, and I still believe in it today. And I know that Walt believed in it because it was, his philosophy was, dreams don't come true without the people to make them happen. So that was a big life lesson that I learned from Tony Baxter in my year.
Well, there are so many fascinating people that come and visit Disneyland, and one of the wonderful benefits of being the Disney ambassador is that you get to host a lot of those dignitaries. So during the year of our 30th anniversary, we had several heads of state visit. I was able to meet the president of China at the time and take him on the Jungle Cruise. Maybe that was you driving, making sure he didn't get squirted. We had the King and Queen of Tonga here, who were fascinating people. And we had Emperor Hirohito's grandson, Hiro, and he was just happy to get on roller coasters and ride and be a kid for the day. And princesses, amazing people. So that was an incredible experience. And then we also were invited to the Chancellery in Germany, where Helmut Kohl was hosting a children's festival. And it was literally on the lawn of the Chancellery, like if we were on the lawn of the White House. And he had the voice of Donald Duck from Germany, Gunther there, and all kinds of kids running around, and carousels had been brought in, and it was a fascinating thing to just get to be standing on the lawn of the Chancellery with Helmut Kohl. It was just very surreal, and really wonderful people that were all, even the heads of state, happy to just put their hair down and just be a kid and enjoy the Disney experience. And then, of course, from a Disney Legend standpoint, I had the great fortune of working with Cicely Rigdon, who was the coordinator of the program, administrator at the time that I was ambassador, and several of us got to work with her. And she just taught me so many lessons about not only being an ambassador, all of the etiquette lessons and everything, such a wonderful mentor, but also about self-dignity and about the fact that, yes, this is a lot of hard work, but you're here to do a job, and it wasn't really about self-promotion. It was about representing the brand, the Disney brand, and she had such a wonderful way of kind of correcting, because I was quite young at the time, so it was just so many wonderful life lessons to learn from her about being professional, about doing a job to the utmost. And if I was, out in a parade and it was freezing cold and I was exhausted and started to complain, she would say, "There's a lot of sadness in the world." Basically like, snap out of it, girl, you're pretty darn lucky. So I'm really fortunate to get to work with her too.
Well, yes, we are lucky, and it is a lot of luck. In the beginning, you think about each one of us. We were thrilled to be employees at Disneyland. We were waking up in a normal environment every day with struggles and parents trying to pay bills. And overnight, actually within 5 minutes, you are catapulted to being a celebrity. And one thing, there's two most unforgettable people I had. Now, there was one I've talked about, this is the other, is my escort during my year was a retired Marine who had survived the Bataan Death March. And in World War II, he was gruff, and I loved him like a father, but he used to tell me, "Kid, you are nothing. And what's behind you is the machine of Disney. There's going to be artists drawing pictures, there's advertising, there's promotion, all behind you. And it's not you, it's Disney making you who you are," which was a realization I had at the very first day, and it was a very good way to start my year, because I appreciated things so much. But the second most important thing is we traveled all over the Orient, and we visited Mr. Honda, who was supplying motorcycles for Walt Disney World, and he gave me these pearls 43 years ago. I can't believe I still have them, but 43 years, I do remember we took off immediately and went to a jeweler. Okay, how much are they worth? So, but that was exciting, and I hear you are nothing, and you're getting pearls from Mr. Honda. But the thing that stands out in my mind is we visited hospitals and we visited orphanages, of course, and all of us have, and I know that we all share these same feelings. But there was a little boy that I encountered, and he's Maria 14 years later. He was 14 years old, and he was riddled with muscular dystrophy, and he was in a jungle with a thatched roof and whitely dressed nuns as nurses, and then these children in beds. And somebody wheeled him over to me. He was filled with happiness in his eyes. He was, as I say, he was quite distorted, but his eyes shone total happiness. And he had spent 2 months weaving me a dragon out of pipe cleaners, and it was a gift he had given me. And that gift is the most important thing I have for my year. I swear I wouldn't cry, but for 44 years, every time I tell this story, I do cry. And I hang it on my Christmas tree every single year. So that kid stands out.
Thanks, Connie. You get to sit over there and I get Quinn next time. Well, for me, one of the most memorable moments would be my first official meeting with Walt Disney. And it was on the set of Wonderful World of Color. he'd been filming, and he took time out to do press pictures with me. Press pictures in those days were black and white shots that you could carry with you and take to the various cities and give to the various newspapers. Most of the newspapers didn't have the capability to print in color like they do now. So on the back table are pictures in black and white. It's not that they're that old, kids, honestly. That they are. Anyhow, we're posing for pictures, and Walt looks at me and says, "Would you like some pointers?" Sure. And he said, "Okay, when you're posing for a picture, you don't look straight at the person. You look off their ear, giving the camera a 3/4 view." And I'm going, "Yeah, that's right. I'm standing here talking to Walt Disney." I never mastered that day, the 3/4 view, because I was afraid he would evaporate if I didn't look at him. It was just too wonderful for me to express. At the conclusion, he goes, "Well, you didn't quite get it, kid, but I'm sure you'll nail it later." And I think I did a little later, but I'll never forget those first moments with Walt Disney.
Thank you. All right, so when I got to meet each of you, I had each of you on this pedestal, and I'm sure everybody out here does as well, for everything that this program stands for. But Bonnie, as you pointed out, everybody is human. So I was curious if anybody up here has any fun, embarrassing moments that you would like to share with the audience.
We're all perfect, Allie.
I'd like to share an embarrassing moment about Eddie.
Works, Bonnie.
Just kidding.
You know, it's funny. I'll tell one I told at the last session, because this one is big. We were on the Hollywood Christmas Parade. We actually got to take the fire truck from Main Street out to Hollywood Boulevard. And it was me, Mickey, and Minnie. And we're standing in the fire truck, and we have the driver, and we're driving along, you know, just waving at people. And all of a sudden, he slams on the brakes. So I go down, and Mickey goes down, and Minnie goes down. It's like an Eddie sandwich on the bottom. Everyone's so high. So we get up quickly, and I'm like, "Minnie, are you okay? Mickey, are you okay?" And I mean, it hurt. And I'm like, "Everyone's good? All right, everyone's good." Okay, back to waving. We do the parade, and the parade's long. I don't know if you know, it's very, very long. Yeah, yes, forever. We get to the end, and I try to get to a phone so I could call my mom. "Mom, did you see me on the parade?" "Yes, mijo. Are you okay?" "Why?" "I saw you fall." "On TV?" "Yes." "Oh no." And next thing you know, my sister's calling, "Hey, are you okay?" Sure enough, come back that Monday, though, everyone's like, "Hey, you okay?" That's all, "Hey, you okay?" So I think what embarrasses me the most about that is that it's immortalized on television. Like, everybody saw that. I thought it was just, okay, just the people there, but that's my embarrassing moment.
I put you in the hot seat, so I have to tell one. I have to give up one of my embarrassing moments. There were so many. My year we did about a 3-month marketing tour to celebrate the first anniversary of Toontown opening and the grand opening of Roger Rabbit's Cartoon Spin. And it was a West Coast tour. We were going to 25 or 30 cities over the course of a few months. So we're in each place for maybe a night or two at the most before we're packing everything up and moving on to the next location. So we were doing live shows at malls along the way, where we would have live audiences in addition to media and camera crews and radio stations and everybody coming out to see Disneyland come to their hometown. So as ambassador, I would go out to kick off the show and welcome everyone. And part of my little welcoming was to acknowledge where we were and say how excited we were to be in X town. So you can imagine, after being on the road for a couple of months and being in a different town every other day, I get up at one of the locations, greet everybody. We're so excited to be here. and I drew a complete blank. I had no idea where we were. And so I just started filling in with adjectives. We're so excited to be here in amazing, beautiful, friendly, praying that somebody would pick up on the fact that I had no idea where we were. And sure enough, we had the whole cast and crew before the show had started were lined up in the back behind the audience. And I think they let me go for a while, just for the fun of it. And then they finally started feeling sorry for me. And so every single one of them in the back was mouthing, Portland! Portland! And I think every city after that, they started holding up signs. Because you never know when we're going to draw another blank.
Well, it's funny because one of my most embarrassing moments happened to do with Portland, so that's a nice segue.
That was not planned.
Yeah, they haven't even heard this one. Okay, as my very first official duties as the Disneyland Ambassador to the World of 1985, my New Year's Day experience was that I was going to be hosting the delegation that was here from the Portland Rose Festival. After they had gone to our Tournament of Roses parade, they were coming back and I was going to be giving them a tour of Disneyland. So I was very excited and woke up that morning and went to say good morning to my parents, and nothing came out. I had 100% the worst case of laryngitis I've ever had in my entire life. So I was like, how am I going to conduct a tour of the park? I was already nervous, like having to conduct a VIP tour. And, you know, I came out of entertainment. I didn't do this like all the guest relations tour guides this was their territory. So here I was. So somehow, some way, I managed to give this, I'm sure it was a horrible tour of Disneyland. And over here, you will see. I mean, literally nothing came out. It was horrible. But we got through the day, and they were so sweet about it. And you know, I was writing notes at lunch, telling them things that I couldn't explain. Finally, in June, we got to go back to Portland and meet them again for their Rose Festival. And lo and behold, I had a voice. They were like, wow, you can actually talk. Isn't that nice?
You know, Quinn mentioned an important part of the ambassador experience, which is cross-training with the cast members to learn their roles. A really important thing, and I tried real hard. I did a lot of different cross-training, and I tried real hard to not be selfish about what those choices were, and not just do the things that I really wanted to do, but do the things that you know, cast members needed to be understood from. And but you know, I did have that one thing I really wanted to squeeze into that schedule, and that was to be a monorail pilot, right? Oh man, did I ever want to do that? So I finally made that happen and scheduled it and got my costume and got trained up. And let's just say, I don't know how much you know about piloting a monorail, but it's not as automatic as one might think. It actually is quite manual, and so you know, you've got to decrease your speed at particular milestones through the track to land into the station in just the right place. And you got to hit a mark that's very small in order for the doors to be able to unlock and let people go. So let's just say I overshot the station at the Disneyland Hotel by, let's not count numbers. It was significant. It was significant. And the monorail. Again, who's counting? And so I did miss the mark. There aren't brakes. It's not like oh boy, we're coming in too hot. Let's just add some brakes. If you miss it, you coast right on past. But the problem was the attractions cast members knew that I was coming through, and they thought it'd be a really cute idea to announce to all the guests, the entire queue, that the Disneyland Resort Ambassador Matt Ebling was going to be piloting Monorail Blue today. Here he comes. And so here I came indeed, and I cruised through, and I didn't quite hit the mark. And what happens then is there's a series of, you know, the number of horns that you sound they symbolize or they mean different things to notify the crew about what's happening with the monorail. I'm about to depart. Here's how many horns I have to do. But there's the one you hardly ever hear, which is reserved for rookie pilots like me, which is the dreaded 3-horn honk, which is I need to back up because I went too far. And so, yeah, of course, so I sail on past, and it's, I messed up to all the land. And I finally, back and forth, whittled it into where it was supposed to be. And then I had my standing ovation, which yes. Any monorail ride you can walk away from is a good one.
That's great. So you were human. So with respect to time, I would love to hear one more story from Connie in regards to, I could tell that you had a little session going down there if you would like to share one more story. And then, and then I would also like, if each of you could describe your ambassador experience in one sentence. It may not be grammatically correct, a very long run-on, but Connie, if you would go first with your story.
Did you want my embarrassing moment or my memory?
Your memory.
Burned forever.
Whichever you would like.
The embarrassing moment. I vote for that.
They want the embarrassing moment. I actually have 2 of them. Number 1 is I learned that peacocks roost in trees, and they're a very big bird. And if you're giving a press conference, check out the tree before the press conference. And the second one was picking up John Wayne. We had to get a special limo for him to ride in. I did not drive it. He was safe. Because he was so tall, he couldn't sit in a regular vehicle. We picked him up. I was with them as we drove him back to be the commentator for the candlelight. And the candlelight in those days wasn't quite as elaborate. We simply had a podium with a skirt on it. And he said, could I have a drink of water? So I ran to get him a drink of water. As I carried the water back up, Cicely goes, don't you be seen. I hand him the water, boom, the lights go on, and I dived for under the curtain on the podium. And John Wayne just carried on. This was a normal function. Later on, Jack Lindquist said, where'd you go? I was sitting on John Wayne's toes the whole time. So that was my embarrassing moment.
That's great. Thank you. Would anyone like to take a stab at describing your experience in a sentence?
In one sentence?
Gladly.
One sentence. My experience as Disneyland Ambassador was life-changing and life-lasting, long-lasting for the rest of my life, and with the building of a family. It gets built every year with new members, but it truly is my family, and you are my brothers and sisters.
It's a tough one, but okay, I'm gonna give it a try. Does that count as my sentence?
Yeah.
I feel like the ambassador experience was a wonderful way to open my eyes to this incredible world. It really taught me that Disney as a brand has so much to offer, both by all the tangible products that mean something to people all over the world, but also the intangible side and the magic side is something that really transcends all of us as individuals. It's something kind of larger than life, and it connects us as human beings. And I'm really, really thrilled that I got that chance to just step into those magical slippers for a little while.
I can name that tune in one word. Supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Jess would be very proud of you.
It's practically a sentence, actually.
And that was genuine.
Yeah, it was genuine, yes. My sentence would be, it was truly an honor and a privilege to be able to represent all the magic and all the cast members and all the hard work that goes into making Disney Disney. And it's something I still carry today.
You know, for me, humbling is the one-word answer, and you know, the longer version would simply be this whole experience was 365 days of completely humbling, undeserved magic that completely solidified my sense of family and my connection of family with not only my fellow ambassadors, but all of the cast members and thousands of guests. I mean, I really feel like we in this room are family.
Connie, I know how you feel having to follow all of this. Thank you very much. I don't even know that I could put it in a sentence, because really what it did for me is it reaffirmed my love for the product, my passion for the product, the fact that I get to be a part of these amazing people on an occasional basis and we run into each other in the community is something that you cannot ever describe. People ask, what's your favorite part? There is no favorite part. It's like your favorite kids, you don't have them. And I'll probably get emotional, I'll try not to, but it really is something that I never could have expected. The wonder and the joy that I experienced for 2 entire years, and the same wonder and joy I get to experience every time we announce a new team and see their excitement, and I get to work with them every single day. And it just is one of those experiences. I'm going way too long and I apologize. But it's one of those experiences that you wish that everyone could experience with you. And you try to think of, how do I describe this and how do I put this into a word? And the word is magical, and I am so thankful to be a part of it, and I love every second of being able to say I'm a former ambassador.
Connie, would you like to give it a go?
I would sum it up in saying that there is real magic in the world. It's inside of you.